couple of months ago, I was coaching a client of mine, an economist who was about to give a televised lecture. And I asked him, do you need slides? And he said, no, the TV people said no slides, they're afraid of slides. People are afraid of slides. And I thought, oh my God, what is it there to be afraid about? And then I thought, well, there's something to be afraid about. A couple of years back, I was speaking at a conference, and I asked the organizers, the subject of my talk was slides. I asked the organizers, what do you think is wrong with slides? And these are their exact words. Too much text, people read the slides. So the assumption seems to be that if there's no slides, then people will be much more spontaneous and relatable, and I don't know if that's true. But too much text probably is the problem. I don't know, too much text, right? I call this problem too much love. Really, there's way too much love in this. I love slides, but this guy likes his slides much more than I do. I mean, this guy is about to marry his slide, I think. I don't know, not enough love, I think. Those guys are about to divorce. But as you can see on this picture, this is what dense slides do to the presentation. You are forced to look at them all the time. You lose spontaneity, you lose contact with your audience, and you are just become, an automatic reader of the slide, like Siri in your computer or in your phone, which I think is not a job for a human being. So there, lots of slides seem to be. However, I would argue that there is no such thing as too much text. There is a thing, however, of having too much text for the given context. Sometimes this is the problem, not all the time. Let me get back to this bit of research done by Stephen Kosslyn about the most annoying and the most frequent PowerPoint failures. So thing number 5 is actually not enough information was provided to support the main point. Number 4, too slowly. Number 3, read word by word. Number 2, too much material. And number 1, once again, too much irrelevant detail. So yes, lots, too much, read word per word, which is a consequence of having too much material, but then not enough information. And this is becoming a very frequent complaint as far as my environment is concerned. Sometimes this is not enough information. People do complain about having not enough text on speakers, about seeing not enough text on speaker's slide. For one thing, there's not enough evidence, right? If you are speaking at TED, you probably don't need to, prove too much. You were invited to speak at TED after all. But if you're a junior financial analyst, sometimes you do need a lot of data to support your conclusions. So there, think about that. Thing number 2. Slides don't work without the speaker anymore. They don't work for email. And once again, slides travel. After the presentation is done, it is a custom of emailing those slides to the people, and then they email those slides to somebody else. And people complain that if there's no notes, or even if there are notes, because notes are typically unstructured, slides don't really work without the speaker. And one final problem, speakers forget what to say. If you don't have enough text on your slide, people tend to, what is this slide all about? Could be the problem. I've seen people just stumbling halfway through their presentation. Oh, what is this? This is one of my favorite speakers. His name is from Microsoft. His name is Panas Panay, and he is presenting his brand new Microsoft Surface device, and his presentation is an hour and a half long. And I asked myself, well, what is this, a rehearsed speech? How was he able to memorize that amount of text? Because as you can see, there's no text on his slides. And sometimes the camera shows the audience and a bit of a podium, and you see the secret. For one thing, you see the whole row of Microsoft fans sitting with their MacBook Pros. But secondly, you can see a teleprompter, right? You can see the same old death by PowerPoint, but now we don't show it to the audience. We just look at it ourselves. Nice life hack, right? There's a very nice bit of research done by somebody named Michael Elie, who is the author of a wonderful book called The Craft of Scientific Presentations, which I wholeheartedly recommend to you. And he did an experiment. He took two groups of students, and to one group of students he showed, he did a lecture and he showed slides like those on the left, and to other, those on the right. Much more text, less structured, fewer text, and the results were spectacular as far as I'm concerned. Much more understanding with fewer text, much less misconceptions, much clearer communication, and much more memorability. The only problem with this research, I understand that his students were writing essays and they were not allowed to consult slides while they were writing. How often does that happen in business setting? But other than that, the results are great. Of course, if you have little text, you have a much clearer, two-way communication with your audience. However, in business, things could be different. There are lots and lots of situations. This is the actual slide by Steve Jobs, because this is a quotation. And the choice was either to memorize it, to learn it by heart, or to just put it all on the slide. And I think the second choice is much more reasonable. It wasn't presented like this. First, he showed the bottom part of the slide. He said this is a quote by Walt Mossberg. And then first paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph, fourth paragraph. So he was guiding attention of the audience. He didn't just put out all the text for them to read, which is a good idea. But other than that, lots of text. So sometimes you have to have lots of text on your slide. This is way too much. But how do we know this? Well, the guy is holding a microphone in his hand, which is an indication that the audience is huge. So probably too much. This would be a good slide for this particular audience. Well, there's no simple rule for how much text you have to have on your slides. For SlideShare, 25 words seems to be the optimal amount, but SlideShare is such a narrow context. I don't think you should be generalizing this rule to each and every situation that you have. If you have 5 engineers in the room and you want to have a deep contextual discussion about some technical things, this is a good slide. Yes, you don't show it at a conference because it just makes no sense. But for a small conference room, and it works for emails as well. If you have 7, 10 managers in your room and you need to structure your conversation with them, this is a good slide to have. Once again, don't show this at a conference because this is a clear sign of disrespect towards the audience. But the benefit of this slide is that it is cheap. There's always this problem of not having enough time to prepare. And this doesn't have a lot of time, and it really does the job. It helps to structure the conversation. And once again, it works if you send it via email. If you have 25 people, you have to invest much more time. This slide is 1/3 of the previous slide illustrated, right? Same text you break it down into 3 slides. Of course, you need to invest much more time into preparing this kind of slide. And as far as I'm concerned, this is more or less the optimal amount. It works for email, it works for SlideShare. Slides like this have a chance on SlideShare. And it works for a live presentation in a conference room or at a small conference inside a company. And of course, if you are talking at a huge conference, more than, I don't know, 30, 50 people, and if you're putting your slide on SlideShare loves those kinds of slides. Very little text, huge emotional images. This is what you should be doing if you're talking to large groups of people. So, once again, there's no simple rule. You have to understand the context. The more people you have, the less amount of text you should have on your slides. And I think this is more or less the optimum. This is a very nice compromise. It works both for email, both for conference rooms, for conferences, and for SlideShare. If you are talking to a large group of people, don't put it out all in one go. Present the header first, explain what the slide is about, and then go first point, second point, third point. Animation really works if you use it to guide the audience's attention. Please don't use it to distract the audience. Let me tell you something, I'm not a huge fan of this effect, or this effect, or this effect. This one is my favorite. No, seriously, this is more than enough. Every once in a while you can do this, but this has to be the slide. It has to be one of the most important slides in your whole presentation. Don't do this with every slide of yours. People will get tired very quickly. This is very distracting. The more expert communication you have, the more text you should be having. More people, less text. And once again, this is a very rough approximation. Think about your company's culture, think about the context.